Hello and welcome back to my series on creating a Minecraft railway station. So in the previous episode we had built out the main structure of the railway station that you see here. And in this episode what we're going to do is go ahead and put the rail in the inside of it. Then we'll probably stop and save the build out on the outside for another episode. Mainly just to break this up because there's kind of a lot to show and a lot to do. So let's start off. We'll get some power rail, we'll grab a switch, and let's get some regular rail. And what we're going to do is just kind of put out a skeleton of what we want to build. We're going to have to dig through the floor to lay in the redstone wiring from one of these switches. So we don't want to put all the railway in here just yet. So here's what we'll do. We'll lay down the power rail here. So this would be where you would set your minecart. And then where there will be rail is running down this stretch right here. And right before you get to the wall here, we'll need to back up one. You'll have the last piece of that rail line that stops right before you get to this junction. Now, what will happen here is we've got rail running in one direction, rail running in the other direction, and what we're going to be curious about is when we lay this piece down, which direction does it point? It does not always go the same way. Sometimes it goes left, sometimes it goes right, and depending on what it does depends on how we have to engineer the next portion of this. So, we lay this in, and see this is going left. Okay, and then if we want to just sanity check ourselves with it, you can also do this. Sometimes you may have come in, you notice I laid it down before I put the rail in like that. Let's say you had done this. Okay, well notice now it's off to the right and it might think, well okay, I put this off to the right, that's the way it's going to run. Now if you put a switch here and you see it flip, as soon as I take it out it flips back to the left. So you want to be careful how you lay it out. I advise you always build out this three-way intersection and then lay the rail down and see which way it naturally falls. Okay, so because it goes to the left over here, it means that when we want to use this, we hit this button. This button doesn't need to do anything other than cause the minecart to fly forward off this rail. This other button over here though, when we hit this guy, it not only has to power the minecart, but as we move forward it's got to switch the rail up here as well. So we're going to start building in the redstone wiring necessary to do that. So let's go ahead and start. You'll end up knocking a hole here. And let me grab some redstone, and we're going to need some repeaters, and I'll go ahead and grab some torches while I'm in here loading up on stuff. Okay, so we'll lay some redstone here. Let's knock out our block. And then let's come around the side back here. We've already started knocking holes and stuff. And we're going to need to knock out the floor here. Now this is a personal preference thing. I'll end up knocking out the dirt and backfilling with the cobblestone. That's kind of a habit from playing the survival game and having stuff blow up outside the railway station. And if it does something like that, you really don't want the dirt getting blown up that has all your redstone wiring on it. So I tend to just remove the dirt as I go through this and backfill it with blocks. Any rate, let's go ahead and run our redstone down here and down here. Now you want to make sure, we'll go ahead and do this again. When we lay the initial redstone it just kind of looks like a blob, but once we connect it you want to make sure you've got this line that points straight at the track. If you don't have that, this isn't going to work. Okay, so let's go ahead and head back into the station. And basically what we're going to have to do is start running the rail line underneath this. Now we're going to run it over to here, then we're going to run it this way, and then we're going to run it underneath this. I'm just trying not to knock my rail blocks back out. So we'll need this, and then to get it up underneath here we're going to have to go one further down. And I'll go ahead and knock these out. Again, you don't have to backfill this stuff like I'm doing here. This is just a me thing or a general presentation. When you're done building this, you're not going to see any of this anyway. Now, we've got a little bit of a special condition around this switch. So this switch actually controls the rail that is going to be outside the left side of the station here. So we're going to have to run redstone wiring underneath the floor here as well. So we want to be careful, because we're running redstone right by this, we can end up having that redstone connect. Now you could say, well, why don't we just run it right underneath the rail over here and then just hitch it back? And the answer is that we're going to have a pressure plate about right here that's going to open up a piston. And so we want to make sure that this also isn't too close to that pressure plate. So let's go ahead and let's put in some of our concerns here, so that way we're aware that we're going to have some things to deal with as we put this redstone wiring in. So the switch up there, we're going to knock a hole right here, and what we'll have is the redstone just going this way. Okay, and we can verify. We flip our switch and we see that the redstone activates. We'll go ahead and cover over part of it. Now anytime that you've got the redstone and it jumps up, see, if I put a block here, watch what happens. If I flip this, I've just severed my redstone line. See, it doesn't do anything anymore. As soon as I knock that out, it lights up. If I put it back, it kills it. So when you've got the redstone that's running up and you're going to put a block right above it and there's a corner, you need to use a half block so you don't cut your wiring. So if I use this half block here, and I'll just knock this one out so you can see it, it's still lit. So I can flip it off and it responds. I can flip it back on and it responds. So we're okay there. Alright, and then since we've got some concerns here, we're going to go ahead and put in, we don't want to put the detector rail too close over here, it'll cause the track to flip. So let's put the detector rail right here. Let me get one. And again, you might be a bit confused what we're going to do with this. We'll come back to it. What I'm doing is I'm just lining out to make sure that I've got other things accounted for. So if we wanted to demonstrate what's going to go on here. We're going to have this kind of structure in place. So we'll have some redstone that runs out the door over here. Okay, and then just like before, I can cover here, but I have to use a half slab to cover this. Then we'll just verify that we've got it set up right. What can I afford to do? We'll get rid of that. I put this on, notice it's lit. Okay, so this will eventually go to a piston that's going to cover this doorway with a glass block, but we're not there yet. So we're just kind of getting it out there, that way we're aware that we're going to have to make sure that doesn't connect. So you can see here we've already got our problem, right? I knocked that out so I can go one below the floor, and here we have the piece I'm talking about. So let's go ahead and we'll have to run this. I'll have to snake this a little bit further. What we'll need to do here is actually go down. Actually, this will be okay. When we brick this back over, it'll be okay here. So let's go ahead and we'll start getting some wiring in, and we'll deal with the problems as we go along. So we get it under there, we make sure it lights. Now I'm in a habit, we're going to need about 3 of these repeaters, and it's kind of arbitrary where you put them. I usually put one towards the back. I guess this time around I'll just keep them together. Alright, so we've got our redstone wiring here. Now we know we're going to run a block over the top here, here, and then a half slab here, because again we don't want to cut the wiring. And so we should still be okay. Now Okay, we're still going to be alright because we're going to be running it up underneath this. So let's keep bringing it around. Then we'll go ahead and we'll cover. We're going to have to run it oops, not there. Let me fix that. It's okay, we'll have to snake it this way. And then we'll run it along this over here. And so what that'll do for us is it'll allow us to block that back up. And we'll have to go a little further over here than we originally planned. I guess I'll knock that out. That broke my track, but okay. Come on, you. Lay down a channel for me. Okay. So you see, a little bit complicated getting this wiring in. If you had to do the switch on this side, then I kind of do a similar thing. I actually run the wiring the same way that you see here, except when I get over here, what I do is I run it under here, and then I run it over to this side instead of over to that side. So the wiring plan is actually exactly the same. Alright, so let's get down in here. We're going to go ahead and cover this over so we don't have it connect. Now we can verify that it hasn't connected because we can see this is still lit. So that's activated. This one on this side is not activated, so it means that we're not touching underneath. We've got a distinct redstone path here. Now let's start putting in some repeaters. It's going to take about 3 repeaters to get enough delay so that when we actually have the minecart take off, we don't have the track switch back before we get to it. So you'll want to adjust all 3 of these repeaters all the way out so they take as much time as they can. And then put the rest of the redstone wiring in like that. Now we'll come up here and then we can kind of clean this up some now. We'll go ahead and block over the floor. Okay, we'll leave this one open. We're going to have to come back to it. And now that we've got everything in here, let's just go ahead and hit the button and make sure that actually switches the track. See it go down there? I hit the button and you see the power rail activate, and if we look fast enough we see the track switch on the other end. Now the question is, do we have the timing right? So let's go ahead and let's lay down some test rail and let's check it out. So what we want to do is we want to go over here, and just like you saw a minute ago, I'll just throw a piece of power rail out here, and then I'll throw up a stop block and we'll put a button over here. And then just for fun we'll go ahead and we'll throw up a testing block out here too. And that way we can show that we can go out either side of the rail and we can come back. And so now setting up these test blocks is important because as you go through this you're going to want to verify at each step that you actually got the railway working. So we'll throw a minecart on here, hop in. Okay, so first let's test the left. So this is not going to cause the track to switch, and we arrive out here and we push the button and we go back again. The track doesn't need to switch. And we come in. Now some of you may figure out we still got a problem left, but I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate it so that way you can see. We hit the right, we come forward, the track switches right on time, and here we are. Now when we go back, the track ain't switching and we just jumped over. And okay, so we got a problem. We need the track to automatically switch as soon as we get here. So what we're going to do is knock this piece out, and we're going to put a detector rail here. Now there's a subtlety with this. We've already kind of fixed it. Notice our redstone wiring ran under here. If we had actually managed to run the redstone wiring under this, you're going to have a bug where when you set something on that detector rail, it would actually power the redstone wiring underneath here as well, and we don't want that. Okay, so the fact our redstone wiring is clear of this by 1 block means we're alright. Let's go ahead and put this in place. Now we'll just demonstrate that we've actually fixed our problem. So I come in here, we hit the button as we go, our track automatically switches, and there we go. Alright. So we have the basic layout inside this. We'll go ahead and we'll do a little bit more cleanup here. Usually I put a half block above. Remember, we can't get it any tighter than that or we'll cut our redstone wiring. And then outside there's not much you can do to just make it conform to the wall. So we had knocked out a little bit of extra dirt, so let me put that back. And then what I usually do here is I just cover over. I put a couple blocks up here and a couple blocks here. And so that just covers over that wiring, prevents anything from getting in there or getting into it. In general, it's not necessary. You'll see on the outside of the station will have redstone wiring all over the place, and I don't bother to seal it in. But for the main part of the station, I think it looks a little bit cleaner to just go ahead and do that. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and we'll stop. Looks like we're about 15 minutes worth of video here. That's probably long enough for this section. When we pick up again, we'll start looking at concerns with maybe making this doorway and then actually building out the rail on this right side of the station here. So until next time, I hope you enjoyed the video and hopefully we'll see you again. All right, thanks.